So for this example problem, the car in the figure below starts from rest and travels along a straight track such that it accelerates at 10 meters per second squared for 10 seconds. So as you can see sa graph below, which is an 80 graph, um, it accelerates with acceleration of 10 meters per second squared during the duration of 0 to 10 seconds. And afterwards, nag-decelerate siya at 2 meters per second squared. So from 10 to an unknown final time, which is the t prime, is 2 meters per second squared. Mo na negative because it is deceleration. So what we need to do is we draw or construct the VT and ST graphs and determine the time T prime needed to stop the car. And afterwards, since we construct the ST graph, kay pangital po nato how far has the car traveled. Okay, so pag zoom, ang ako gi-zoom in, this is the 80 graph. Mao na tong basehan for us to construct the two graphs which are the VT and ST graph. Okay? So before I proceed on the I hope that you had your ball pen, your calculator, your um, paper or notebook beside you. And these are the answers in the left side. This is the VT graph. Mao na to ang kailangan itsura sa to ang VT. Ang itsura po sa ST. And the time needed to stop the car, that must be 60 seconds, mo ng final time. And the distance traveled by the car, which is 3,000 meters, starting from rest. So first is let us construct the VT graph. Okay, so for the VT graph, since ang given there is a problem is ang 80 graph, this is actually the opposite sa atong gi-solve last time, which is ang ST graph ang given. 'Di ba? Just a recap sa first example problem, ang sa kung ST graph ang given, you can construct the VT and then the AT, and then ang gamito nimo is derivative. Pero kung 80 graph is ma-construct nimo first si VT, then si ST graph using the integration. So for this problem na 80 graph ang given, we will construct first the VT graph. So just a solution for this one. So that is the VT graph. And natay duha ka intervals. It is erratic motion because each interval has different kanang different functions na gi-describe ang motion sa car with each interval. So for 0 to 10 seconds, lahi ang iyahang motion. Pag 10 to t prime is lahi pod ang motion na gi-describe sa car. So for the first interval, that is from 0 to 10 seconds, so that would be 0 to 10 seconds. Ang graph nato based sa 80 graph is 10, that is horizontal. So that would be A is equal to 10 meters per second squared. But before that, di ba kung 80 graph ang given, kung 80 graph ang given, ma-construct mo si VT, then ma-construct mo si VT using the kinematic equation na A is equal to dV over dt. Also, once ma-construct nimo si VT, ma-construct din nimo si ST graph using the kinematic equation na V is equal to ds over dt. And ang imong ma-apply ani for you to construct the VT and ST graph using these kinematic equations kay integration. So when we substitute it sa tuang kinematic equations for us to construct the VT and ST graph or ang functions for the velocity and position, we will use integration for that. So for the first interval, 0 to 10 seconds, ang acceleration niya pag-describe within that interval is A is equal to 10 meters per second squared. Manuman A is equal to 10 meters per second squared because if you um, if you see the graph sa 80 graph mismo, horizontal line na siya. So horizontal line, this will be the equation para sa imong acceleration. So let us determine the expression sa imong velocity using this A is equal to 10 meters per second squared. So the kinematic equation would be A is equal to dv over dt. And you substitute the 10. So that will be 10 is equal to dv over dt. Then cross multiply. dv is equal to 10 dt. For us to determine the function, the expression for the velocity, we need to eliminate the d, kaya naka-velocity differential pa man siya. So we must integrate both sides. So each side i-integrate nato. 'Di ba kung mag-integrate, it could be either definite or indefinite integral. So you can use indefinite, mo na ang plus c. So you need to use the initial conditions. And kung definite is using the upper and lower limits. Sa ako I will use definite para diretso na lang ta para dili na ta mag-compute og value sa constant or the value sa c. So I will use definite integral for us to come up with the expression for the velocity. So for the left side, we need to determine unsang iyang lower and upper limit. So it means the initial conditions. So for the lower limit, which is the initial condition sa imuhang car, unsa man ang iyang initial velocity based on the problem? What will be the initial condition for that? What is the lower limit? Unsa man tong value sa lower limit nato sa left side sa atong equation? Hello?
Zero face, sir. Zero.
Ha? Pila?
Zero, sir.
That is zero. Manuman zero ang ato ang koan, lower limit. Anyone who can tell me what is the
Tres,
reason nga no
tres man, sir.
zero ang ato ang lower limit?
Tres
Rest
man, sir.
man.
Okay, because it starts from rest. Okay? 'Di ba? Kung mag-solve mo, you read the problem carefully, then dito ninyo may baw-an kung unsa na mga values ang inyong gamiton. So sa lower limit, since zero man siya for the velocity, iyang initial velocity because the car starts from rest. So that would be zero. So zero to ang lower limit here. Then the upper limit is the variable v. And for the right side, ang iyang initial time is also 0 kay starts from rest man gihapon. So 0 gihapon ang iyahang t, and the upper limit is the variable t nato. So we will answer this one, we integrate this one. So the integration for that is v 0v is equal to 10t. The integral of 10 dt is 10t. 0t. Then pag substitute sa upper and lower limit, that is upper minus the lower. So kung sa imuhang na inside sa imuhang bracket, that is you substitute the upper and lower limit. So v minus 0, so v man gihapon na siya. Here is 10t minus 0, so that would be 10t. So this is your expression for your velocity that describes the time interval 0 to 10 seconds. So later na to i-graph. Later na ko i-graph using atong gingon nako na graphing calculator once ma-solve nato ang other expression for the other interval. Okay, so for the interval 0 to 10, that is v is equal to 10t. And just a continuation, we will also determine the expression of the velocity for the time interval na 10 to t prime. Ang t prime is mao man na ang time needed to stop the car or the final time of the car. And wala matakabalo kung unsa ang t prime, so we will later isolve na tong t prime afterwards. So the second interval, that will be 10 seconds, or it is from 10 seconds to t prime. And the expression sa acceleration that describes that this time interval is a is equal to negative 2 meters per second squared. So if you notice here sa koan, sa 80 graph, it is also a horizontal line. Then the value here is a deceleration of 2 meters per second squared. So that's why it is negative 2 meters per second squared. So the same lang atong gibuhat kanina sa first interval. We use the same kinematic equation. So substitute ang 2, negative 2, dv over dt. Then cross multiply, negative 2 dt. Then we integrate again. And here, like what I've said, it could be either definite or indefinite integral. So ako gamiton kay definite para mas dali. Dili na ko dili na ta mag-compute og constant. So in this time interval, it is 10 to t prime. Since definite integral man natong gamiton, which is the upper and lower limit, unsa ang lower limit dire sa to ang left side sa atong equation kaning sa dv? Is it 0 gihapon or not? 0 pa ba gihapon atong gamiton or dili? Take note ha, kay this is a different interval. Different na time interval, 10 to t prime. So ang question, ang gamiton ba nato na what do you call this? Initial conditions for this expression is the same ba kanina na 0 or lahi na po na numbers or values?
Lain na po the numbers, sir. Value. V na pod na
Okay,
kon.
lahi na numbers or values. Pero question ani, unsa man ang value, unsa ang lower limit sa to ang kuan diri sa dv? Ang sa right side kaning negative 2 dt 10 seconds, 'di ba? Kay starts from 10 seconds man. So 10 seconds ang atong gamiton diri sa lower limit sa right side kaning negative 2 dt. Pero diri sa dv kaning sa left side wala ta kabaloon sa ang iyahang lower limit. So for us to determine unsa ang velocity niya when the time is 10 seconds, we will use the expression that we solved kanina. So what was the expression?
10t.
That was 10t.
V equals 10t, sir.
So that would be kana magamit nato unsang velocity when the time is 10 seconds. So we just only substitute the 10 sa first na expression natong gisolve. So that would be V is equal to 10 times 10. So V would be 100 meters per second. So therefore, at time equals to 10 seconds, ang velocity ana during that time is 100 meters per second. Okay? Kay um, ang duha ka expression man gud ani are na may common na time nila. Ang common na time nila is the 10 seconds. So that's why you can use the other expression for you to solve the velocity. So for the lower limit here, that would be 100. And the upper limit still the variable v. Dire sa ato ang right side, the lower limit is 10. Kay it started at 10 seconds man. Then the upper limit is the variable t na to. So we will integrate this. So this would be v gihapon 100 v is equal to negative 2t 10t. Okay? So you just substitute the upper and lower limits, upper minus the lower. So upper, which is v, minus the lower, 100, is equal to the same thing here sa right side. So the upper limit is t, so negative 2t minus the lower limit, 10. So minus negative 2 times the 10. So you simplify, v minus 100 is equal to negative 2t plus 20. So you simplify, you transpose the 100 to the other side. So the expression of your velocity for the time interval na 10 to t prime is negative 2t plus 120. So this is the expression of the velocity that describes this time interval. So i-graph nato na siya later on. But before that, let us determine first the time needed to stop the car. Okay? So ang question, gapil man gud dire sa problem, you determine the time t prime needed to stop the car. So unsay pasabot ana kung ang time natong pangitaon is for the car to stop. Unsa matong pwede buhaton para ma-determine nato ang time? Kasi pasabot ng statement di ay, needed to stop the car. I'll just rewrite the ano ha. 0, 10 seconds. Mo na v is equal to 10t. um, 10 t t prime. Mana v is equal to negative 2t plus 120. So kaning t prime dire sa tong 80 graph need po nato na siya pangitawon kay kailangan man jud na siya. So unsa na to pangitawon ng 3t prime ana? Unsa may hint para pangitawon nato ang time needed to stop the car or the value of the t prime? Anyone? Hello?
Derivative, sir.
Ah? Unsa?
Dili ko sure, sir. Derivative ang answer.
Derivative? Unsa pasabot ng needed to stop the car? Kanusa ka unsa na scenario or pag pag-analyze nimo or pag pagbasa nimo sa statement na needed to stop the car, unsay pasabot nimo ana na statement?
Final time, sir.
Unsa pay other koan? Final time, unsa pa man? Needed to stop the car. Unsay pasabot ana? Kano sa mag-stop ang car? Sige kana. Kano sa mag-stop ang car? Ato naga-drive ana, dira. Kano sa ka makaingon na nag-stop na ang car? Oh, kana na koan.
It is 0.
After 10 seconds?
Unsa ay na nag unsa to murag babae man to nagkoan ay
Pag
wala na ko makuan
velocity,
kita to
sir.
nag-answer to.
Pag velocity kay 0, sir.
Velocity is 0.
Sir, balance
Ano
ng
yung
force.
velocity is 0? Okay, from the statement itself, needed to stop the car. 'Di ba? O kano sa man mag-stop ang car? Kung velocity is 0. Mo ba yato gigamit kanina sa lower limit sa kaning sa v is equal to 10t. Starts from rest. So kung starts from rest, 0 ang velocity. Pag stop sa car, needed to stop the car. So kailangan ang velocity mubalik na po to 0. Kaya nag-stop naman siya. So ang question, which of the two expression natong gamiton? Is it the first or the second for us to determine the t prime? Is it the v is equal to 10t or v is equal to negative 2t plus 120 atong gamiton for us to determine the time needed to stop the car? Okay,
Ikaduha,
kung naman
sir.
kay v is equal to 0,
Ikaduha, sir.
ikaduwa. Kay tungod, ang time interval, ang t prime, which is the final time, kay naa siya sa second time interval, which is 10t, 10 to t prime or 10 to the unknown final time. So we will use the second expression for that. So that would be at v is equal to 0. That is where the car will stop, needed to stop the car. So we will use this second expression for us to determine the time needed to stop the car. So that will be 0 is equal to negative 2 t prime kay mao man ang variable gigamit sa final time nato plus 120. So pag simplify or pag determine sa t prime, what would be the answer? Transpose ang negative 2t or 120. So you will have 2t prime plus 120, then divide by 2. So your t prime or your final time or the time needed to stop the car is 60 seconds. So nanatay value sa ato ang final time or kano sa mag-stop ang ato ang car which is represented with the variable t prime na equal to 60 seconds. Now let us proceed sa graphing. Okay? Do you have any do you have namoy day bawaan ng mga graphing calculator online? Did you know some graphing calculator online so far? Wala. Wala.
Dismos mo tama mo gamit.
Ah, sir, Dismos, sir.
Ha?
Dismos.
Dismos.
Oh, Desmos. Kana pong
High school mo,
gamiton.
sir.
O,
Yes,
so
sir.
na mo mag-Desmos.
Ambot kabalo pa gamit.
Ang problema ani kay kabalo mo magamit sa Desmos na kanang dili mag-extend like kuan lang jud like kung unsa jud for example balik ta sa kuan ay nawala kung i-share na lang nako ni. I will just share the Desmos na actually tama tong gingon Desmos na graphing calculator. You can search it online. So if you're using a laptop, pwede po sa mobile phone, just type desmos.com desmos.com or Google it na lang about Desmos. It is actually a free online calculator, graphing calculator. And kung sa mobile phone, gusto ninyong app is Desmos po ang name. Okay? Mao na mong gisolve kanina sa previous section. And then, if you notice, naka-form me o ingani. Pero usually manggod kung naka-graph manggod kay kung kung imo i-type for you to graph the function kay mag-extend siya. So i-delete sa nakong koan. Okay? So this is actually a Desmos. Kanang nay kalahian sa online kaning diri sa website kaning sa kung magamit kag site tapos gamit og app kay diri sa desmos.com pwede ka maka save or export sa imong image after okay na ka sa tanan, after satisfied na ka sa imong graph. Okay? Nakasunod mo? Did you follow? Conic section pa'y naibaw-an nako, sir. Oo. Sige daw, kung if you're using a laptop, adto lang mo sa desmos.com. If you're using laptop, pwede pod sa like if makaya, download mo Desmos sa App Store or sa Play Store. So let us graph the two the two functions sa velocity natong gisolve kanina. So the first one, diri sa kilid is dira ninyo i-type ang mga functions, ang equations. But before that, we need to label first your axis. So diri sa wrench na symbol kaning graph settings, click nimo na siya. Na diri ang i-change nimo ang name sa imong x and y axis. So ang x nato is t, ang y nato is v, kay VT Graphman. Okay? Then you can actually change the range sa imong x-axis and y-axis. So na-purpose na siya para at least ma-define ang imuhang maklaro jud ang itsura sa imuhang graph. Then ang step is more on the kanang what do you call this? Kanang pag-numbering mismo sa imuhang x and the y-axis. Then kung mag-change na kag-label, makita na sa imuhang koan sa graph na diri ang sa vertical is the V and the horizontal is the T. Okay? So we go back here diri sa kilid kung asa i-type nimo. So you just only type the expression. So itong first one was V is equal to 10t. Okay. Mao lang itsura. Ni-graph na siya. Kung kana lang na itsura, extend yun na siya. Di ba? Then, so just a basic ano lang paggamit na ng Desmos o kung wala pa idea about ani, you can actually change the color. You can click the gear, kaning edit list. Then, once na kay ani, diri sa kilid, click the color. Then, dahil choices nimo sa color, it could be red, blue, green, orange, violet, and black. You can also change if you want na dash line or pwede solid. Then you can change the line thickness and the opacity. Okay? I know what is this one. Okay. Kalampi, invisible lang ang line. So, mo nang ang other features sa kung pwede nimo i-change ang color, ang line thickness, or nimo dash line ang imohang gigraph. So, I will choose blue for that. And for the line thickness, pwede 2.5. Doesn't matter. Then if you actually type the other expression na itong gisolve kanina, that was V is equal to negative 2t plus 120. If you notice, kay extend po na siya. 'Di ba? And for this reason, kailangan na nga itong ma-achieve is kanang murag gud og the same atong gi-show na ko na answer kanina sa previous na ko na presentation na kailangan mo putol jud ang line ang na-extend. So kung ing-ani nahitabo na kanang wala na define og maayo ang koan. Wait, I need to kung wala na define og tarong ang graph nimo, diri lang ka sa graph settings, then pwede ka mag-change sa imong range. Kung gusto nimo na usually sa x-axis ka mag focus. So the range would be 0 to 60. Then ang y ilang y ani? Asa siya nag-intersect? Actually, kung mag-click nimong intersection, makita man nimo kaning 10, 100. So 10 ang x and 100 is the y. Mao nang intersection sa duha ka lines na imong gigraph. So you just only change that into 0 to 100 steps. 100. Yun. So kung ana manggod, mas maklaro pa ang imuhang graph kung dito ka sa kaning sa x-axis and y-axis kaning sa baba, kaning naka-inequality. So pwede po nimo i-change ang values ana para mas ma-define og maayo ang imuhang graph. A question, unsa na to pagputol aning koan? Kaning nag-extend, di ba? Ang ato need lang kay kaning nag-form ng og triangle. So we need to use braces. Kung say braces, sa ngipon ha. That is a curly braces, curly bracket rather. So this is what we call braces. So ang atong input diri inside the braces kay ang imohang time interval. So that would be 0. And if you want to use other inequality na symbols, naay diri show keypad sa baba. So you can click the kaning mga less than or greater than or less than and equal to or greater than and equal to na symbols. So we use this less than and equal to na symbol, then T, then less than or equal to, then 10, then ang other na brace na pod. Then makita ninyo 'di ba nagputol na siya? Nakita ninyo? Naklaro ba?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, the same nang gihapon sa second. Ang time interval ani is t 10 to 60. Okay, 60 man ang final time nato. So, 10 to 60 seconds. And if you notice, mo na dahil ng imong graph diode. Okay? So, this is actually a convenient way for you to graph any functions, quadratic, cubic, any types of equations na pwede nimo i-graph. And mas dali ni siya kay makita dahil nimo kung unsa na as sila intersect. You can actually kay usually good I'm not sure actually sa uban I think sa uban uban na mga graphing calculator on ang mga other online graphing calculator kay the same sila murag features kay murag kani ako ang wala na ako na discover kaning pwede dahil ni siya na using braces or curly brackets para maputol nimo ang koan kaya dili siya mag-extend mismo. Once you are satisfied on your graph, you can click the share graph here above. Then, export image. So, pag-click niyo mo sa export image, nailahi na window mo gawas here. So, kung satisfied na ka sa itsura, okay, pwede ka mag-change sa size niya, large square ba? O large square, malahi na po ng iyang koan. This one. Medium square. Kana. Ang line thickness, you can also change the line thickness. Then once okay na, you can download PNG. Okay? Ang wala na ko na koan ani kay ang pag-label. I think walay label ani sa each graph sa koan. Not sure if you can discover on how to label this two lines. Kung na-discover ninyo using Desmos, mas better. Okay? Pero so far, wala ko kakuan, wala na ko na, what you call this? Wala ko na discover how to label this one. Kay, diri sa plus sign, diri sa taas, kaning add item, kung i-click nimo na, kay na yung mga other options na tay expression, note, I'm not sure kung say note, not sure kung say function ani, table, kung asa naka values ang given, so naka x and y values. So si Desmos nang mag-graph ana based sa imong given na value sa table. Ang ako lang diri is wala pa ako ka-discover sa pag-label sa each line nako na gi-graph nako diri sa sa graph. Okay? So once na save na nimo, I'll just stop presenting. Balik ko sa presentation. Sa PowerPoint presentation kanina. So you can actually use that to attach, especially kung kahit any biskan unsa pwede ninyo gamiton sa subject ninyo na needed o graph. So mao man atong kuan atong equation no, mao man atong gi-solve na time. So mao na atong graph. So ingan ang itsura kay gi-change lang nako ang kuan murag gigagmay ra nako ang ang distance. So you can actually use the Desmos graph as to export the image of your graph so that you can use that as an attachment for your VT graph. So mo nang naitabo dire gi-attach nako dire sa ko ang PowerPoint. So mo na tong VT graph mismo and this is the VT graph for the given problem. Okay? Next question so far sa VT graph. Sa VT graph sa Desmos, you can actually
Pwede na sa phone, sir.
question, pwede siya.
Pwede ba sa phone?
Yes, you can search it on if you're using Android, you can go to the Play Store, then type Desmos. Pangita ang Desmos Graphing Calculator. The same if you're using an Apple device, you just um, only type the Desmos. Ang sa app sir pwede pod ma-save ang sa app sa phone kay wala na ko nakita ang difference sa website o sa app kay wala save ang image. So ang buhaton ninyo ana kay i-screenshot na lang ninyo. Pero kung ma-discover ninyo na pwede siya ma-save as ma-save as image, kay kailangan mo gud ka mag-login or what you call this, sign up. Pero mas okay naman na magkuha ng ka mag-screenshot then i-crop na lang nimo. Ang advantage lang kaning sa online, ang kaning sa site mismo sa desmos.com kay ma-save nimo as image diretso. Ang sa app kay wala kita na feature na the same siya sa site na makasave siya as image. Pero you can download the Desmos sa Play Store and sa App Store.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Nag-testing bit ako, sir.
Yes.
Tapos, bali lagi siya, sir. Bali ang graph. Nagkapira na ako kung sa yung tag-type.
Kasi bali, what do you mean? Sige daw, i-share screen daw.
Ay, okay ba, sir? Ako ba dyan, kuan? Mali.
Basta make sure na na tamang imuhang koan, axis, V
Okay na,
and
okay na, sir.
Okay na?
Nagtama ba na? Amo naman ba na feel na ako nabalik ito ni Sobra?
okay. Basta make sure na tamang pag-label ninyo sa axis atong sa Y, atong sa vertical axis na V, then ang X, which is the horizontal axis, which is the T. Okay, para at least pag input, ang inyong gamiton na is using the variables V and T na. Okay, pwede maghihapon ang inyong gamiton is Y and X. So pwede Y is equal to 10T. The same gihapon ang ma-graph niya. Pero basta para dili mo malibog, mas better kung i-label ninyo first ang inyong axis before ninyo i-input tong mga functions na or tong mga equations na i-graph ninyo. Mas better ni siya if ever quadratic, cubic na mga equations. Later kay mamanang sa ST graph kay naka-cubic naman, naka-quadratic naman siya. So once mag-solve na mag-construct na ta sa ST graph kay balik ko na to ang Desmos. Okay? Do you have questions sa VT graph so far?
None so far, sir.
If you notice here, Sad, wait lang ha. And if you notice here, sa AT graph, from horizontal line, pag abot sa VT graph, ang iyang graph is line na kanang diagonal or kanang with a slope. So ang next sa ST would be a parabolic or kanang quadratic equation mismo. So linear man ni, so next would be quadratic equation. So let us construct the AT graph, the ST graph rather. After we construct the VT graph, gikan sa AT graph nato, we can construct the next graph, that is the ST. So the same process ato gibuhat kanina. So B is ST graph. Okay? Like what I've said kanina, kung nana kay VT graph, you can construct the ST graph using this kinematic equation. V is equal to ds over dt, and ma-apply nimo ani for you to construct the ST graph is using integration. Okay? So for you to come up with a function na gamiton nimo for ST graph is using integration gihapon. So let us determine the two functions. So the first interval, that is 0 to 10 seconds, and the function or atong equation sa velocity in this time interval was v is equal to 10t. So using this kinematic equation, v is equal to ds over dt. That would be 10t is equal to ds over dt. Then you cross multiply ds over 10t dt. And if you notice, na siya 10t. So, ang imong ma-come up jud ani pag integrate is naka quadratic or naka squared. And for us to determine the expression of this position, kay i-integrate that to both sides. The same ra gihapon since it starts from rest, so therefore its initial position is also 0. So its lower limit is 0. The upper limit is S. For the right side, 0 gihapon ang iyahang initial time, and the upper limit is T. So we integrate this equation. So this will be S 0t is equal to integration sa 10t dt. Yung sa mga integration sa 10t dt?
Over 2.
What's your answer?
10 t squared over 2, sir.
10t squared over 2 or 5t squared?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that would be 5t squared. Okay, 10 over 2 is 5 man. So that would be 0. Okay, namali lang ko dire. So this must be S. Then you substitute the upper lower limit. So upper minus lower gihapon. So S minus 0. So that would be S is equal to upper minus lower diri sa right side. So 5t squared minus 0. That would be 5t squared. So this is the equation or the function of the position for the time interval na 0 to 10 seconds. So later, balik ta sa Desmos, once compute na nato ang function for the second time interval. Okay? So this is the equation or the function of your position for the time interval na 0 to 10 seconds. Now let us proceed on the second time interval. So just a continuation. So that is from 10 seconds to the final time na 60 seconds. Okay, na-solve naman natong 60 seconds kanina. And the equation na gamiton was V is equal to negative 2t plus 120. I need to check if, okay, negative 2t plus 120. So the same thing, the same kinematic equation, that was V is equal to ds over dt. So negative 2t plus 120 is equal to ds over dt. Then you cross multiply, ds is equal to negative 2t plus 120 dt. So you integrate both sides. Pag integrate, again, either indefinite or definite, I will use again the definite integral using the upper and lower limits. Here, sa time interval na 10 to 60 seconds, wata kabalo unsang iyang position when the time is 10 seconds. Tama? Wala ta kabalo unsang iyang position when the time is 10 seconds. So unsa tong buhaton para pangitaon nato ang time, ang position niya when the time is 10 seconds? Unsa na equation to gamiton?
Katong
S is equal to 5t squared.
Okay. That is S is equal to 5t squared. So we can use this equation for us to determine unsang position niya or the position S when the time is 10 seconds. Kaya 10 seconds man ang common time sa kaning first and the second interval or the first and the second time interval. So if we substitute the value sa t, or at t is equal to 10 seconds, so that would be S is equal to 5 times 10 squared. So the position when the time is 10 seconds, that is 100 times 5. So that would be 500 meters. So the lower limit, or during this time interval, when the time is 10 seconds, ang position ana during that time is 500 meters. So that would be 500 meters. Then the upper limit is S. Here sa PICAS, ang atong lower limit is 10 seconds and the upper limit is T. So we will integrate this one. Integration sa ds, that is S. 500 S is equal to integration aning expression, negative 2t plus 120. So negative 2t squared over 2 plus 120t and your upper and lower limit na 10 and t. So we simplify, or we substitute the upper and lower limit nato. So pag substitute nato sa upper and lower limit, upper minus the lower, so that would be S minus 500. Okay, mo man nato ang koan ang sa left side, and sa right side, negative 2t squared over 2, that would be negative t squared na plus 120t. So i-substitute din mo ang upper and the lower limit. So that would be negative t squared plus 120t minus the lower limit na 10. So negative 10 squared plus 120t. Then you simplify S minus 500. Kung dili klaro ang koan sa inyong cellphone, you can actually zoom in using your fingers if you're using a phone. Pero kung sa laptop, I don't know how to zoom in kung sa laptop. Pero if you're using a phone, you can use your finger to zoom in. Ano lang nimo, brag-bragod og nagtanaw ka og picture. Here would be negative t squared, negative t squared plus 120t. And this would be negative 100 times negative. So, positive 100 na ni. Ay, nga naman t man eh. This is 10 na ni siya. So, mali atong pag-substitute. So, 120 times 10, that is 1,200 times the negative. So, that would be minus or negative 1,200. Then, you transpose the negative 500 to the other side. So, that will be S is equal to negative t squared plus 120t. So, 500 plus 100, 600 minus 1,200, that would be negative 600. So, this is the expression of your position for the time interval na 10 to 60 seconds. So before we construct the 80 graph, isolve sa nato ning how far has the car traveled. Okay? So we need to determine pila ang total distance na gi-travel sa car. So that will be the final position nato. So for that, ang kaning how far has the car traveled, since nag-stop man siya at time na 60 seconds, so using this expression na S is equal to negative t squared plus 120t minus 600, mao na itong gamiton for us to determine the total distance traveled by the car. So for this one, or how far has the car traveled? So using this expression natong gisolve, so the time natong gamiton is the final time, that was 60 seconds. So we substitute here in our expression, that is S is equal to negative 60 squared plus 120 times 60 minus 600. O pila man na to ang position ana when the time is 60 seconds. Pilang position na to?
Sir.
3,000 meters. So that would be 3,000 meters. So ang distance na gi-traveled by the car, especially that when the car stopped, is 3,000 meters. Okay, so natay answer aning how far has the car traveled. Now let us construct the ST graph. So we go back to the Desmos. Mas convenient ang mga graphing calculator, especially kanang mga what you call this, mga quadratic or cubic ang mga functions ang may counter ninyo. I will just share again the Desmos. Okay, so we go back here sa Desmos. So mao na tong gi-graph kanina tong sa VT graph. So you just only delete, you just only click X, X, X. Okay? Then if you want to change the label, you go back again to the wrench na symbol. Kay V pa man ang ato ang label sa Y. So ST naman ta. So you just only change the label sa Y-axis to S. Then later na nato i-change ang range sa X-axis and sa Y-axis. So sa first function, that was S is equal to 5T. Then diri sa keypad below, kay naka-squared man, na diri ang option, imo i-click. The same pod sa app if you're using a mobile phone or a tablet. So, i-click lang nimo ni siya para mahimo siya t-squared. So, it will become t-squared. Makita ninyo na nahimo na siya parabola. So, it is facing upward. Then, para makuha na to ang ang makat na to ang portion, later na to makat if ever ma-input na to ang isa ka function. So the second function was S is equal to negative T squared plus 120T minus 600. Okay? So kung makita ninyo, mao nang iyang itsura, di ba? Murag kung wala mo kabalon sound pagkat ani maglisod jud mo og what do you call this? Pag-form sa imuhang graph, especially for the ST graph. Especially ang function here is the quadratic. So for this one, ang time interval ani is 0 T to 10 seconds. So braces ang gamiton ha para makat. So nag-cut na siya. Ang iya ra manggod, mura programming manggod ni siya. This is actually a program. So this is programming. So ang gi-program ani, ang i-think ani sa program is that ang makita lang sa graph is from 0 to 10 na values x within the x-axis, which is the t. The same po diri sa second, 10 to 60. So 10 to 60. And kung makita ninyo, kung i-zoom out na ako, kutob siya 3,000. Dili maklaro ang iyang pagka-curve. 'Di ba? So, pwede ninyo i-adjust ang pag-curve niya ato ka sa iyahang graph settings. Then, pwede ninyo i-change ang range sa X. Kay, ang makita man gud diri is until 1,000 ang ma-view gibali. So you can only change 0 to 60. Okay, 60 raman atong kailangan. O kana, makita na natin ang iyang pagka-curve. Okay? Maklaro? Makita ang curvedness niya? Ang curvature? Ang color, you just change the color if you don't like black. Orange is fine. So, here, nanakay koan, nanakay curve. Maklaro ang curve? Naklaro ninyo?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ang question, kaya bitaw line na kaning sa 60 nato, kaning magbutang tag line sa within sa 60 sa magperpendicular sa imong koan, sa imong t-axis para ma-enclose jud ni siya. Kay usually man good kung magtan-aw mo sa sa mga graphing kay naka-enclose jud na siya. So ang inyong buhaton is you create another function na vertical, and that would be x is equal to 60. I don't know why kung dili makuan ang t is equal to 60, dili siya mag-read. Lahi ang iyang koan. Murag ang iyahang mag-ano kay ang x manggod is mao man na ang equation sa vertical line na nag-intersect sa imong t-axis. So that would be x is equal to 60. If you notice, mo na ang blue color. Then, para maputol, disin gihapon, braces imong gamiton, you start from 0, ang imong values is ang y. So, ang gamiton imong na variable is y, so 0 to 3,000. Kaya ang intersection dili is 3,000 man, 63,000. So, ang y value ani is 3,000. So, that would be 0, y, sorry, 3,000. Then, pag-enclose sa braces, na nakaykoan, kanang pag-enclose sa imong graph, then you can actually change ang itsura sa kaning vertical line. You can change it into color black. Then, you can change it into a dashed line. Then, that will be your graph for your ST. So, makita ang iyang pagka-curve, ang iyang curvature. Then, naka-enclose na siya. Meaning, kutob lang siya sa 60 seconds. Then, you can go to the share graph. Then, export the dion. So, if you click the export image, you have a different window. You just only change the size if you want a large square. This one. Ang large square, maklaro pa ang kuan. Kaning 3,000. So if you want to change the line thickness, you just only click either thin, medium, or thick. So kung thick, mas baga, mas ma-define. Medium is normal. Thin is kanang di na klaro ang nasa kuan sa likod, kaning sa graphing, sa mga box. So you can choose the line thickness. Okay, then you can click the download PNG para magamit mo ang image to attach to your sa kung naka-send na mga output. Okay, so that will be your 80 graph. That will be the image.